We're talking with Kara Lawler, and we're talking about Everywhere Holy, and she wastes no time to grab a hold of my heartstrings. Chapter 1, how to be alone. She's dealing with how to deal with anxiety and depression and the fog. And I tell you, you know, Kara, you're transparent about this being very autobiographical, of course, but I think what I ask you to is dive a little into, like, first the phases of, like, identifying, okay, this is actually where I'm at. How do I get out? What do I, you kind of go through this different stages. So talk a little bit of that kind of, people, they know something's wrong. They feel like they're in a fog. They know what anxiety, they know depression. They may have been seeking counseling, medications. I mean, this is a chronic issue in our country. So speak a little bit about that journey a little bit before we kind of get even deeper into the book and all that, because I think you did a great job of jumping right into the darkness, basically.
Yeah, thank you. And sure, I'm happy to do that. I think for me, looking back, I probably have struggled with depression in specific since I was a teenager, now that I've identified that part of myself. But as I mentioned earlier, the struggle with postpartum depression after the birth of my daughter, my second child, was very real. I will say that I tried to ignore it. I tried to I didn't tell anyone, to be brutally honest. I am disappointed in myself to tell you that I lied at my 6-week checkup for Maggie and wasn't honest with the doctor about how I was feeling, because I think there's a lot of stigma related to some of these mental health issues, and in particular with postpartum. So while I did seek some help at that particular time, I did go into therapy. I was very resistant to, ultimately I did go into therapy at that time, but was resistant to really any other kind of help at the moment. And unfortunately for me, over the next 3 years, things got progressively worse, which is often the case if you're not dealing with the true problem and not being honest about that. And so I think if people are finding themselves kind of stuck in that fog, it's really a self-acknowledgement of that I think comes first. And of course, I'm not a therapist, but that would be my number one suggestion, is to be honest with your doctor, and then be honest with the therapist and your family, because you need them through support and prayer, which I don't think I did early enough.
We're going to put some links there in the description so you can connect with Kara, follow her on Facebook and Instagram, even check out everywhereholy.com and see a little trailer for the book, because it jumps right in. If you have ever or are dealing with these kinds of things, this is a book for you, and it's something I would just highly recommend.